Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're hanging out in Fullerton. It's a beautiful day and we're checking out the latest Motiv Stash. This thing comes in a bunch of different colors and this is like a matte blue, really beautiful. However, with matte paint, you can see the kind of oily fingerprints and stuff from where we were touching this earlier and folding it and unfolding it and stuff. So there are trade-offs, but I love that the founder of the company, Cameron, he's got these nice alloy fenders here, not steel, so they're not gonna get rusting and stuff, but they're gonna give you something that's a little bit sturdier. They got mud flaps on them and they're paint matched. Really nice. The suspension fork up here, I'm estimating that's about 63 millimeters of travel, but there's no lockout, no compression, no preload. It's just pretty basic. Tempo, I don't know if that's the brand or the model. Standard quick release skewer here, kind of what you'd expect to see on a value priced bike. However, it's convenient when you have a folding bike and maybe you're trying to reduce weight or get it as small as possible, or maybe changing a flat. Was told that these are puncture resistant Kenda tires. I didn't see any like markings to sort of validate that, but they do look a little bit thicker and they've got some smoother tread on them. They seem a little bit heavier duty, so I'm gonna go with that. 20 by 2.125, a little bit fatter. That increased air volume gives you stability and it also gives you a little bit of comfort. So you got the suspension, you got the bigger tires. The stock saddle is this Velo, kind of a sporty saddle, not super comfortable. So the shop that I'm at, it's owned by Sam Townsend here. It's called the Electric Bicycle Center, just down the street. And it looks like you swap out these bigger, like kind of plush saddles. Is that something customers ask for a lot?
First impression is very important when somebody rides a bike. Just based on, I believe it was Monica that said, the seat was so important.
Yeah, that's true. And she also said that this folding joint on a lot of folding bikes, sometimes you can hit your knee on that when you're pedaling, but they really want it to be sturdy because the battery is actually integrated into that mid tube. So it's hidden. It's not on like a rear rack, hanging out in the back, making the frame flex and just standing out. Even the motor here, I love that it's black. It matches the black spokes, the black like deep V rims right here. A little bit more stylish. Like everything Cameron does for the Motiv line tends to be more stylish. And I remember the first time I reviewed the Stash just a couple years ago, it had just come out. And he was telling me, I was like, why didn't it have fenders or rack? And he's like, no, it ruins the look. Like, look at how beautiful it is. However, I like the utility of fenders, and I think he did them right. So he waited, and he got it right.
Yeah, definitely. It was probably feedback from customers and dealers that said, hey, we want them. Before it was an option, you'd have to be extra for it, I believe it was.
That's right, yeah.
And it's much better getting it done at the factory, and he got it done right. Wrap around, not just clipping on the edges here. Sometimes the stays will come back and clip here. This one goes all the way around the back. That makes it much more secure and solid when you're riding. That's
awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna hit some of the rest of the specs here. Yeah. Because I really appreciate your insights. And we were talking about this on the way over and getting a feel for these bikes. It's a folding bike, so the idea is if you live in a house where there's limited space, or maybe you're not using it all the time, or you're traveling or something like that, this is a really versatile platform, kind of a mid-step design, so it's a lower standover height. Sometimes it's like a his and hers setup. Motiv has like the Sleek and the Spark. We were just looking at the Works earlier today.
Yeah, I find that most people that are buying folding bikes are either RVers or people doing short commutes.
Okay.
And need to get from the house to downtown Fullerton, which is just 2 miles, not even a mile and a half from here actually, to get to the train station and the bus station.
Okay, well that's great feedback, Sam. The interesting thing about this particular platform is that you have a telescoping stem. So it's raised up and in fact a little bit beyond its minimum insertion height right there. The idea being that if you're a taller rider, then you don't have to bend quite as far forward. However, if you raise that too much and then you're turning, these cables can stretch. So just careful with that. Don't overdo it. Also, when we unfold this later, there's these extra locking pins and stuff for safety, but there's no like magnet, there's no like bungee or clasps or anything to keep it staying in the folded position. So sometimes I'll just go on Amazon and get some bungee cords or Walmart or whatever. Just something to think about in terms of the foldability of this bike. At the rear, we do not have quick release. Make sure you keep the tire pressure, between the recommended 40 to 65 PSI, because this is where you can get more flats. You've got more of your body weight towards the rear, you got the rack, and if you're coming into contact with curbs or something, you can squish the tire and do like a snake bite on the inner tube. So anyway, 13 gauge spokes, a little bit thicker than normal, and it can handle the forces of that motor. This is only 350 watt. It's a Bafang internally geared hub motor. Pretty just, you know, standard. Like this is a motor I've seen before. I trust it. It looks great in this configuration, but 350 watts, a lot of people will be like, well, gosh, you know, some of the other Motivs are like 500 or 750, like, you know, really powerful sounding motors. But the thing is, when you have this smaller wheel diameter, it actually gives you a mechanical advantage. So I think this is spending the energy pretty efficiently, and that's nice because we've got a 36 volt 9 amp hour battery, whereas a lot of the newer bikes are kind of like, you know, 36 volt 14 amp hours, or maybe even 48 volts. Okay, so it comes down to, you know, what were you telling me, Sam? Like, it's the controller and stuff too.
Yeah, depending on how they've got their controller programmed will determine the amount of torque and power off the line, how many amps it's pulling, you know. And you can ramp up for a short period of time and it'll have that nominal power, and then there's a peak power that'll come on for a few seconds. Yeah. And that's when you need it off the line or when you're climbing a hill. How much do you weigh? I'm down to about 228 this morning.
Nice, congrats, man. Yeah. And how did this bike feel to you? We just rode over here.
It's nice. Again, I like the more comfortable seat, but it's zippy enough for around town. The range is going to be sufficient. It's not too heavy.
That's right, 49.9 pounds. So we're just under 50, and for metal fenders, you know, that's not too bad.
Yep.
That's actually pretty decent. Sorry about that, man. We'll clear the sidewalk for you. You know, it's interesting to get your feedback, because I'm only 135 pounds, like 5'9". You're a little bit taller than me, so, you know, the telescoping stem is a big deal.
Let's talk about the touch points too.
Okay.
So a lot of folding bikes come with a thumb throttle. And depending on if you have arthritis in your thumb or in your wrist will determine whether you like a twist throttle or a thumb throttle. And the Motiv comes with the twist throttle. And I prefer a twist throttle. As a motorcyclist, I like the feel of a twist versus having to hold my thumb on. And I'm not using the throttle that often. I'm just using it to bump me off the line or climb me up that hill. Once I've crested that hill, I let off the throttle, I'm back to using the pedal assist.
However, that twist throttle, you know, as soon as you turn this bike on, it's active. I think this starts in pedal assist level 1. You can override assist with the throttle, which is great, but it's a little bit more of an advanced setup. It's not like foolproof. You get on this bike and you know, grab the handle thinking you're just hopping on for stability. If you twist that, the motor could kick on. But again, the motor's not super, you know, it's within reason here. 52 tooth chain ring. I love that they have the plastic guide so the chain doesn't bounce off if you're on rough terrain. These smaller diameter wheels, you know, it's a higher attack angle, so they sort of run into bumps and stuff. They don't span cracks quite as nicely. Lower air volume too, so even though they're wider, they're just not quite as comfortable as bigger like beach cruiser tires, but these are better than average in terms of folding bikes. 11 to 32 teeth on this 8 sprocket cassette in the rear, Shimano Acera. That's a nice upgrade because it used to be Shimano Tourney, which is just entry level. This is several steps up. You can see the power cable for the motor zip tied along with the light power cable, and then the shifter derailleur cable back here. So there's a lot going on, and they are not internally routed through the frame, but they do have this plastic cover and they look pretty nice. And then by not routing them through the frame, they stay out of the way of the battery, which we'll get to. They don't get pinched maybe quite as easily. The cadence sensor is really nicely tucked in here, and it's kind of sealed. The old ones used to have like a big disc with magnets, and these ones they seem to hold up better. They look nicer as well. And then there's that platform for when you fold it so that the plastic chain guard doesn't come into contact with the pavement.
And the first generation didn't have this. So with Motiv, as well as other manufacturers, you know, it's a learning curve. They make that first generation and they're like, feedback from customers and from dealers will tell them like, hey, why didn't it come with that? Well, the next one it will, and there it is.
Good. It's nice to see. I mean, there are some upgrades on this, but the price stayed the same. It's like $15.49 or something like that.
I think it's a good price point.
Yeah, good price point with lights, with the fenders, you know, with the rack. And check this out. It used to have, you know, similar Tektro mechanical brakes with the motor inhibitors, great to have, especially with the cadence sensor and with the throttle. Like anytime you pull the brakes, the motor cuts out. Integrated bell and 180 millimeter discs, okay? It used to be 160, so that's like almost overkill for a folding bike, especially because you have a huge mechanical advantage with the smaller wheel size. So, you know, my only complaints on this side of the bike is the kickstand's right in the middle, so you get that pedal lock. That's a bummer. This kickstand isn't quite long enough, so the bike seems to like tip to the side pretty far, which maybe is not a big deal in normal day use, but for photos, I wanted the bike like straight up and down, and I couldn't really get it. Then we have the plastic folding pedals, which these are Well Go, like it's a known brand. It's just, you know, you push them in to fold. They don't have the little lever. They also just aren't as like stiff, and when they rotate, they aren't as smooth. There are Well Go pedals that are metal folding, but it adds to the weight and the price.
Some people take the folding pedals completely off and put a good quality pedal on there. It's hard to find a good quality folding pedal. The other thing I want to mention is quick disconnect on everything here, and that's, again, the choices that the manufacturer makes. The difference between an LCD and an LTD may be $50 on the price. And I prefer definitely the LCD because you've got more functionality on that display that'll give you more info.
That's a great feedback. You know, we're about to jump into that LCD, but I want to call out this crazy, like thick and long Truvative Husafelt 35 millimeter diameter. A lot of times these are just, you know, 30.6 or 27.2, so 35 is much thicker. 550 millimeters long, and it comes out the bottom, so when you fold it, it acts as another support. Just be careful, because if you kind of scratch the bottom of that and get some burrs, it might not slide as smoothly. So again, the saddle, it's set up to be a little bit more active right now, which for someone like me, my legs are kind of skinny and I like to pedal, so I don't want something like chafing my inner thigh. But if you're someone who wants to just sit back and use that throttle, maybe you want the comfort and have a little bit more support. So again, no rubber bumpers on the stock saddle compared to this other Motiv saddle with the rubber bumpers. And that's the cool thing about, you know, Sam, you know Cameron, he's right down the street, so you get other parts from him and you accessorize these pretty well.
Yeah, and Cameron's great too. He's always there for the dealer. I mean, I've got his personal cell phone number and I can call him anytime. I call him on a Sunday afternoon, and I've sold a couple bikes, and I say, hey, you know, I probably got 40 bikes from him in the last month. And he's there for you, and he's there for the customer as well. He's a good guy, real good guy.
So for me, Motiv is like the style, the support. It's a smaller kind of a company. He's been around though for several years.
Yeah, so he's been around for a while, and he was passionate, and he worked for other companies, and now he's kind of gone on his own, and he's developed his name very well. And the people that buy Motivs are very loyal to the Motiv brand as well. I can say that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's good news. That means that maybe they bought one, they bought a second one for their partner or friends, and they're still loving it. Here's the matte black. It's completely broken down. We're trying to save time on this, cover a bunch of bikes today. This is what the battery looks like. It's only like 4.1 pounds. And then on this side, it has an on-off switch. So, you know, the idea with batteries, lithium-ion batteries in particular, is to store them in a cool, dry location. Try not to let them get too like empty, because that's hard on the cells. Extreme heat especially can be kind of tough on these things. So being able to take this out to reduce the weight, to charge it inside or whatever when you leave the bike in the garage maybe or somewhere is cool. And then to even be able to fully turn it off with that red button. And then look, they've got the full-size USB Type A port, probably putting out 5 volts, 500 milliamps. So you could use that on the bike by opening up this little rubber window, or off the bike and just as like a backup, you know, power source. I really like that. When you do fold it, just be careful with these lights and stuff. The headlight is mounted to the suspension arch, so it could, you know, when you're riding, it could bounce up and down a little bit, but having them both run off your main battery is really convenient, and then you're not having to come back here and press a button every time you want to ride. And you're not wasting like those disposable cells, even if you recharge those. It's just, it can be kind of a hassle that way, and I just feel like the fenders are tucked in enough. Everything looks like it's pretty well, you know, it's protected. And then this is what it looks like at the midpoint where it folds. So again, it's overbuilt for strength, but just be careful. Sometimes it's nice to be able to test ride these at a shop because, yeah, Monica, my friend, she would ride on this bike or similar bikes with a similar big joint, and it's a little bit of a danger zone for like your knee. You don't want to bump that. I think that's it. Maybe we'll just jump into the display, but I should talk about the charger too. This is just a really basic charger. I've seen this for other, you know, whatever, value priced e-bikes. 2 amps, weighs like 1.5 pounds, fairly portable. Here's the Motiv owner's manual. You get this box and stuff. It works okay. And for a relatively average capacity battery pack like this, it's not too much of it's not a big deal. It's not like a huge compromise. So anyway, the battery's charged. It's mounted in the frame. I'm gonna hold the mode button for a second. Comes to life quickly. This is the JLCD. They've been using this display for a long time. It works pretty well. It looks like 4 ticks in the battery, but there's actually 5 because the outer perimeter of the infographic counts as a tick. So 5 steps. We got a clock, assist level. This is what I was saying. It starts in assist level 1. You could take it down to 0, but even then the throttle is active. So it kind of works like a scooter. Just be careful, because remember, it's on right now. If I bump that, the bike could take off. And we've got speed. Right now it's in kilometers per hour. We'll switch that in a minute. Odometer down here. If we press the mode button, it goes to trip distance and then just back. If I hold the up and mode keys together, it turns on backlighting, which you can't really see right now. Is the headlight on? Yeah, Sam's, you know, it's a bright day, but you should be able to get an idea for what this looks like. And I want you to know, you know, how many LEDs. I think it's just a single LED in the rear, and it's a little bit under the rack, but it's kept out of the way enough. By the way, 55 pounds on this. And it's got the spring latch, and this is steel, whereas everything else on the bike was alloy. But it does have a little bungee strap for if you've got panniers or even just a bungee cord. So coming up to the front again, if we hold down on that arrow button, we get walk mode, which can be convenient. Rather than pushing the bike, maybe you get a flat tire, it can help you limp home. And then if you hold the up and down keys together for a little bit, it lets you set the clock. We'll press the mode button to cycle through, okay, top speed. And then we can change from kilometers to miles, which we just did. And then you can change the wheel size. So it's like, okay, let's take this down to 20-inch wheels. And then levels of assist, backlight brightness, levels of assist, and then we're looped around again. So I hold mode. We're basically done. That's it. That's the display. Okay, guys, Sam's gonna fold the bike up, and I just wanted to point out, when you slide the pack in, then you lock it with the key, so it is fairly secure, though someone could unfold your bike if it was like at a rack. And tip it forward, get the joint together, lock it, and then there's that little safety pin. Great job. There's the stem. It's also got that little button so it won't come unfolded. I think that's kind of it. We left the seat up on this one, so yeah, I'll help you out on this side. Got the pedals ready to go, right? Let's take a little ride. Okay, guys, we're gonna start off in assist level 2. With the smaller wheels, like there's a little bit of a zippy feel, and again, it's a cadence sensor, so I'm just gonna shine the camera back there and you can get an idea. Okay, feeling pretty good. It's actually not quite as overwhelming as I thought. I'm gonna take it up to 5 now. Okay, there we go, now we're feeling it. Definitely a delay going on. That's kind of always what happens with cadence sensors. It just doesn't start instantly, but it does stop pretty quickly. And we got those motor inhibitors to override that for safety. And balance-wise, because of the bigger tires, oh boy, we got some rough terrain here. Just kind of testing out that front suspension a little bit. Feels pretty good. And then the bigger tires, whoa. Definitely a challenge to get through this bumpy section, but it feels pretty balanced. And I definitely prefer the trigger shifters over here. Since this is a hub motor, you don't have to worry about, like, you know, interacting with a mid-drive and feeling like you're mashing the gears or anything. How are you doing over there, Sam? Looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's a rough road too.
Yeah, this is definitely a rough road. We gotta test out those big tires.
Yeah.
Want to lead on? Turn to the left?
Sure, let's do it.
To the right, I mean. Beautiful. He's a pretty big guy and looking pretty comfortable. How tall are you, Sam?
6'4". And we've ridden folding bikes from here to the beach and back. That's a 50-mile ride.
In terms of frame flex, though, the bike feels pretty stiff. And you know, with that wider, like, rectangular tube versus circular ones, I feel like it's doing well. Also, sorry for the jingling. That's the keys right there for this model. The shop just keeps the keys with each bike so that they don't misplace them. Now I want to demonstrate like full power here. So I got the twist throttle going on. There we go. 19. Like 19.5. So yeah, you know, this is about 20 miles per hour on this bike. It's feeling pretty good. I feel like there's enough range in terms of cadence levels to choose from. You can make it smooth. You do hear the motor zipping a little bit. That's just kind of how it goes with these internally geared hub motors. But the style is there. The comfort's like okay with this seat. The suspension fork is very nice. It's tough to find a folding bike with suspension and the fenders and the lights and stuff. A lot of those different accessories, they add up. A lot of these bikes are like $1,800 or $2,000, it seems like. So to get a shop that carries a bike like this in like $1,549 price range in a bunch of different colors is pretty sweet.
Yeah, stop right here.
Nice. And you could see the suspension dive a little bit when he stopped. Can't really adjust that, but then again, it's a pretty lightweight suspension and it's about price point.
It doesn't bottom out like some of the other ones.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Sam was saying this suspension doesn't bottom out like some of the other systems and hardware he's tested. Looks like these guys are going on a test ride. Got the bikes back to the shop, and yeah, I was impressed, you know, just the way that this handles considering some of the specs.
Yeah, and a lot of times, especially on folding bikes, it can be a little intimidating with too much power, and I felt it was a good balance with a 350 watt 36 volt. Some other companies are using bigger batteries and bigger motors, but in this folding category, I think that's a good balance.
Okay, that makes sense. You know, you've got a bunch of different folding bikes here. You know, we were looking at one over there. Depending on the fat tire setup, the weight of the bike, you know, 50 pounds, this is pretty standard.
Yeah, and the price point's good too. I mean, I've got a $3,600 carbon fiber electric folding bike in there as well.
The E-Prodigy, yeah.
Right, so it just depends on what the individual's looking for. For some people, 30 pounds is all they can lift.
Yeah.
So some of these other models might not work for them. You have to come in and you got to go to a shop that has a good variety and test ride some different bikes. You might have to go to a few different shops before you find that right fit. Buying online is very difficult. You might get a bike that you may not be too happy with.
You know, this has been fun, you guys. I hope that gives you some perspectives from me, some of the stats and stuff. Of course, I have all those details back at the site. We folded it, unfolded it, measured it, standover height and everything. Of course, I appreciate your perspective, Sam. It's fun to come out and check your shop. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Have fun out there. Share your comments and ride safe.